What is language made of? Many would argue that it's these 26 glyphs. Some more linguistically minded people might have envisioned human communication as this bizarre cipher, the IPA symbols. But hang on just a minute, what about words? Aren't they more important than letters? All of these features are examples of human language, but why do we actually need them? The simple answer is that we use letters and words to satisfy discreteness. But what does that really mean? Welcome to episode 1 of our series on xenlanging. If you find this video useful, please consider liking, subscribing, and joining us next week for our episode on creating grammar for your xenlang. Oh, and make sure you watch to the end, where we showcase our finished xenlang. Believe it or not, on your xenlanging journey, you too will have to stoop down to the level of these strange things we call phonemes in order to make a good xenlang. But don't worry, your xenlang's users absolutely do not have to communicate using their mouths. For example, cuttlefish communicate by changing the colour of their skin, using chromatophores. Honeybees perform dances. Prairie dogs have alarm calls, and the Carolina chickadee has 6 different types of call. And if those weren't enough, here are a few other ways to achieve discreteness. You could use lights, sounds, some form of appendages, chemicals, genetics, or electricity for your xenlang. In essence, as long as something can display information, you can use it. Okay, but why does human language use 2 forms of discreteness? We have sounds, and then we have words. Well, this is actually called duality, or double articulation, and is very useful for making your xenlang more advanced. To create duality, you need to start with the meaningless information at the bottom, and build your way up to more and more meaning. The more layers you have, the more complex and concise your xenlang will be. Don't worry though, I'll make a video specifically on duality in the weeks to come. But let's see this in action. This is an electrokaryote, an organism which lives in the icy waters of the river here. As the name suggests, they use electrical impulses to communicate with each other. So for our first layer, we're going to use electrical signals. But how exactly do they work? Well, inside an electrokaryote is genetic material. If an electrokaryote notices that there's a high concentration of a certain mineral in an area, a series of electrical particles will run through its nucleus, and after passing through an insulating layer, this information contained by the electrical particles leaves the electrokaryote as chemical signals. If, for example, there's a high presence of sulfur, which here is represented by the yellow dots, the electrokaryote will send out yellow hexagons to other electrokaryotes to alert them to the presence of sulfur. That other electrokaryotes will then receive the yellow hexagons as chemical traces, before converting them into electric signals and storing them in the insulating layer, which acts as a kind of memory. But how do the electrokaryotes know where the chemicals are? Well, it just so happens that there are in fact many nuclei inside an electrokaryote, which are used to confirm the position of a certain mineral. The nuclei which give out chemicals is arbitrary, and is not determined by the position of the minerals in relation to the nuclei. Instead, the order determines this. So, with just 2 layers of duality, just like human language, we've managed to create a system for an organism to locate its food source. If this system seems a little bit simple for you, don't worry, because we still have 3 more steps to undergo before the electrokaryote's communication system becomes a language. Next week we'll be creating some grammar for a very exotic language, so be sure not to miss that. Anyway, that's all for this week. If you enjoyed this episode, you might also find these videos interesting. Anyway, bye.